What's going on, guys? It's Nick here, back with another fantasy football video. This one's going to be the PPR rankings for running backs. I didn't think I was going to make this video, but you guys seem to want it, so went in, made the running backs, and I'm going to record wide receivers next. I should be putting this up on Wednesday and Friday. Don't know which one. Probably the running backs on Wednesday, and then Friday will be the wide receivers video. And I'm not going to talk about everyone like I did in the running back and wide receiver for standard, because you've already heard me talk about them. And it's basically the same points. And it's not hard to think about. If someone catches more passes, you're going to move them up in your rankings. So David Johnson, I have one for here, but I have number 2 in my standard rankings. And that's just because he's going to catch a lot more passes than Gurley. So I'll talk about the basically the people who move the most. If someone didn't really move, won't be talking about him. But David Johnson, he is the featured back. He's the guy that's going to be getting all of the touches in that offense. They've come out and said it basically. They want him to be a workhorse. He's going to catch a ton of passes, and that offense gets a ton of points, scores a ton of touchdowns. So he is in the best situation out of probably anyone on this list, and he's a great talent. So he's definitely the number 1 in PPR. It's just full point PPR. And next is Lamar. He moves up a significant amount, I feel like, from the standard, just because he has caught passes a lot over his career, and they love to throw to the running back in that offense. And if they're going to feed Alfred Blue the ball, I mean, they fed Alfred Blue a lot last year. Why wouldn't they feed Lamar? Like, they brought him in. They want him to be the guy. He wants to be the guy. He has a great opportunity. Can his body handle the workload? We don't know because we've never actually seen him carry the workload. But the talent looks like it's there, so he is definitely the number 2 option. Right in front of Bell, and people are scared on Bell a little bit just because of the suspension, and he may not even be suspended. He is fighting it, and if he's not suspended, technically he should be the number 1 guy, because when he's healthy, he's the clear-cut number 1. And I wouldn't say overall player, but he's definitely the number 1. Week in and week out, he is the most consistent running back in PPR leagues, and really in standard as well. But he is the most consistent guy, and that's what you want out of your first running back. He is very injury prone, but to be honest, every single running back is going to be injury prone, just because that position gets so many touches that they're bound to get injured at some point. But the thing is with him, even if he's suspended for 4 games, you don't have to start him for those 4 games. I've already talked about that. You look at the end of the year and you may say, oh, he may have not finished top 5 because of those 4 games. Well, you didn't take a 0 for those first 4 games. Whoever your number 3 is, you just bump up to your number 2 for those first 4 games, add that to the next 12 with Bell, and that's probably going to be top 3. So that's why I have him ranked there, because you're not forced to start him. Even if he gets hurt for a couple games, you're not forced to start him for those games. Yes, you may have started him and he got hurt halfway through a game, but if he's missing a week from suspension or injury, you don't have to start him. So the weeks that you do start him, you basically won those weeks because he's that dominant in that position, and it's a very scarce position to be dominant in. So I do really like him as a 3rd guy. Gurley 4th because he doesn't catch, and he's talked about that he wants to be more involved in the pass game, but he's great for standard just because he scores touchdowns and he's going to be so involved in that offense because they have no one else. But he doesn't catch passes, and that has to move him down because these other guys have such a higher floor from catching 3-4 balls a game. That's like 30 and 40 rushing yards that Gurley gets taken away from his floor. So next is Elliott. He's pretty close to where he is in standard. I won't talk about him too much. Just got to think it's like the greatest offensive line ever. So if DeMarco Murray can get 1,000 rushing yards, so can Ezekiel Elliott. Peterson was dropped down a lot because he doesn't catch a ton of passes. He does catch a decent amount, but I feel like a mixture of the age and the catching bumps him a little down the list. He's still in that elite tier. 7th overall, I mean, that's pretty solid, but I think he's more of an end of the 2nd round pick in PPR. Same with Charles, end of the 2nd round, but he has a lot of upside because he does catch a ton of passes, but he's torn both of his ACLs. He's turning 29, so you can't take him with a 1st round pick because he is very risky. But where risk is reward, I mean, if you can grab Bell and Charles as your first 2 picks, yes, I don't advise that, but if they happen to produce like they can, you have basically won the league. And if you want to take a shot that both of them pan out and potentially win the league in the first 2 picks, go ahead and do it. Next guy is McCoy. He barely doesn't get into that elite tier. And I really think about, I feel like this blue tier is the value tier. All of these guys are pretty good value picks and haven't moved too much in changing to PPR. Lacey, I feel like, is in the exact same spot. Freeman's in the same spot. The thing with Lacey is he doesn't catch as many passes as McCoy, Ingram, and Freeman do. They're all pretty solid in the pass game. Ingram, many people don't really know that, but he is probably going to get like 40 or 50 receptions. Plus the touchdown ceiling with him. The only problem is he's not actually good at running, so he's just not a good running back. He's never even had 1,000 yards. It's just he's super injury prone as well. But again, you can't really knock that on running backs because they're all injury prone. McCoy is the focal point of that offense. That's why I put him ahead of Ingram, just because there's so many weapons in New Orleans that there are going to be games that I feel like Ingram's going to not get as many targets as McCoy does, because if McCoy's healthy, I mean, it's just him and Watkins. There's no one else, so he's going to be heavily involved. Freeman is a terrible running back. The only reason he's on this list is because it's PPR, and he catches a ton of passes. They love to dink and dump with him. But Tevin Coleman's clearly a better running back, and if they just realized that and started Tevin Coleman on first and second down and then threw Freeman in for third downs, they'd be a better offense, but they just haven't realized that at this point. Lewis moves up a bunch. He's one of the biggest movers because his floor on a week-to-week basis is really high because he catches like 4, 5, 6. I mean, he's had like a 9 or 10 catch game, I think. It's ridiculous. He catches a ton of passes, and those are all points. Even if it's a 0-yard catch, it's a point. And he's heavily involved in the red zone too. And if you have to guard Gronk, Bennett, Edelman, even Hogan and Malcolm Mitchell, if Mitchell is healthy for the first week, that is. But again, I mean, even if he misses the first week, which I don't think he will, Lewis is going to be involved in the red zone because you can't guard everyone in that offense. Doug Martin moves down a little bit because he catches no passes. Same with basically the rest of the guys in this green tier. Martin, Rawls, Anderson, Murray are not probably going to be heavily involved in the pass game. Definitely not Doug Martin. They pull him out of the game on third down. He gets like 1 catch a game, basically. It's like 1 catch for 5 yards every game. And I don't think he's that much better than Sims. So I was thinking about moving him down behind Rawls because Rawls have huge upside. But again, Rawls also isn't involved in the pass game. So all of your points are going to come from carries. And that's not fantastic. When, say, he gets 120 rushing yards. Well, someone who ran for 30, then caught 4 catches for 40, they got 11 points instead of the 12. And it's not that hard to run for 30, catch 4 for 40. I mean, there are a decent amount of scat backs that do that, or at least can do that, whereas 120 rushing yards, that's a great game, but it's only 12 points, and he's not going to catch passes. So same with Anderson. DeMarco, I really want to see more in the preseason. He had a great first preseason game, but so did Henry, so we'll have to see what the timeshare is there. We still don't really know. Next list, Forte. Forte is tricky because through his entire career, he's been great in PPR, but Bly Powell is going to be the pass down, going to be in on passing downs, and you've got to think that they want to keep him a little fresh. I mean, he's getting up there in age, so if they want to make a push for the playoffs, which you know they want to do, they are going to try and keep him fresh, so they're not going to throw him in on 3 downs, which limits his value in PPR. The next 3 are guys that move up a lot in PPR. Bernard's heavily involved in the pass game. Woodhead obviously is involved in the pass game. And Duke Johnson's going to be really involved. Especially RG3 is going to be the guy. So running quarterbacks definitely help the running back because defenses, they can't hone in on the running back getting the ball every time. They have to stay back just for a second, and that does open up a lot of lanes. You see it with the Seahawks, Russell Wilson, and you also see it with Tyrod Taylor and the Bills. It does help out the running back a lot when you have a running quarterback. And he's going to catch a lot of passes because that offense isn't very good. They have some young talent, but it's not a good offense, and it's not a good defense as well. So they're going to be down. They're going to have to throw, and he's going to catch a lot of passes out of the backfield. Don't be drafting Isaiah Crowell also, especially in a PPR league. Crowell's literally going to have like 10 catches maybe all year. He's not a good running back as well. Duke Johnson's the guy you want. Even if not to start the year, if Crowell is the first and second down guy, by the end of the year, Duke Johnson is going to take over. There's no way Crowell keeps that job. So the last guy in the purple tier is Matthews. He's only low because every time he's gotten the opportunity to be the guy, he just hasn't. So until I see it from him, I don't really want to move him up. He's probably not even going to really be in a bunch of pass catching situations. So the reports haven't come out that he's that great, anyways. I mean, one guy said that Sproles looks like the best running back on the roster, so it's tough to tell with him. Murray's also tough to tell with because that is one of the best offensive lines in the league. A lot of people don't realize that. Oakland has probably a top 5, maybe top 3 offensive line in the league. They want to run the ball, but they also don't really like him. I mean, they were frustrated with him last year. He'd been benched last year, and I mean, he was benched for like Marcel Reese, the fullback. So he's not a good running back, and they do like DeAndre Washington. They want him to win the backup role, and he's going to be in third down too. So Murray's not going to get many pass catches. And he didn't even last year when no one was behind him. I mean, they were pulling in Marcel Reese for pass catching situations. So I don't like him, but I like him a lot more in standard because I don't think he's that good. It was all volume last year. That's why he finished so high in standard leagues, is because they gave him the ball so much and he didn't really do anything with it. Matt Jones is the same thing. He's awful. I mean, he's probably the worst starting running back in the league. But they have no one else. Again, they have Chris Thompson, who you'll see in a little bit. He's great in PPR, not much in standard. But Chris Thompson isn't an every down back. He's only a scat back. So if he's the only guy they have, I guess he's going to get the ball, but he's lower in standard, or he's lower in PPR just because he's not going to catch, and he's not that good. So Hyde, again, I've talked about Hyde, how I just don't like him. It's probably because he didn't do that great last year. And again, it's the same thing with him. He's not going to be on pass catching downs. They're going to have Sean Drone, who is a great pickup late. And you hear me talking a lot about that, is this idea of if a guy's only in on first and second down, he doesn't have pass catching abilities, that means his floor week to week is low, and I don't want that. I don't want a guy who has a floor of like 6 points. I'd rather just take a scat pack that's going to get 3 for 30 and get those 6 points way later in the draft. So if I also don't think they're that good of a running back, I'm not going to draft them. I don't think Hyde is that fantastic of a running back, and he's only going to be in on first and second downs, and the offense stinks. Why would I want him on my team? I'll just take the third down Sean Drone, who's going to have games where he has like 6, 7 catches for like 50 yards. That's 12 points. It's 120 rushing yards. So it's so much better value to take Sean Drone than to take Carlos Hyde and what you have to get in like the 6th round. Next 3 guys I like. Not as high on Melvin Gordon. Obviously, you guys have heard me talk an infinite amount about Charles Sims. And I mean, I do think he is at least on the same level as a running back as Doug Martin is. And he's going to be in the game when they're down. He's going to be in on all third downs. If Doug Martin goes down, he's got huge upside. So he's a great pick late. Melvin Gordon is better in standard than PPR just because Woodhead's going to steal all those targets. And he also steals a lot of touchdowns, Woodhead. And Foster's a guy, I like the upside of Foster. If you're going to go wide receiver 0, if you grab Foster, I mean, he technically has top 5 potential where you can get him in like the 6th, 7th round. They want one guy. They've come out and said they want one guy to win the job and be the 3-down back, be a workhorse. And if Foster gets that, you're getting pretty significant value from a guy who has done it before, has elite pass catching abilities, has elite running back abilities, and you're getting him really late. Only thing's injuries, but I mean, at this point in the draft, why not take a shot? If you already have one running back and a bunch of stud wide receivers, why not take a shot on them? Just see what happens. The rest of these guys, I'm just going to kind of skip through. I like Powell. I like Theo Riddick. I like Tevin Coleman more in standard. Tevin Coleman is not going to catch passes, but he is an athletic freak. Freeman's terrible, so if Freeman goes down, technically Coleman's all they have, so he's going to have to be a 3-down guy. But literally just type in Tevin Coleman highlights and watch him run for like 16 80-yard touchdowns. I mean, he is a monster. Powell is going to be the 3-down back, he's going to be the 3rd-down back behind Forte. But again, would you rather have a guy that goes in on 1st and 2nd down, having to take him in like the 4th round, or 8th or 9th round, have a guy that's going to catch all the passes, where his floor is like 6 or 7 points a game. I mean, I'll take that as my third running back. I'll take a guy whose floor is 6 or 7 points a game, and that's plenty of points to plug in when someone goes down with an injury for a week, has a bad matchup, maybe they have a bye week. He's a perfect plug-and-play guy. None of these guys on the list excite me that much. I guess D'Angelo, if you pick up Bell, you need to pick up D'Angelo Williams because the weeks that Bell doesn't play, Williams is a RB1. So if you suspend it for the first 4 weeks and you want to draft a guy in the 9th round that is an RB1 for 4 weeks, and then maybe trade him to someone who doesn't realize that Bell is even a player or a human being, maybe just find that noob that looks only at the stats and goes, whoa, I didn't realize he was so good, and then trades for him. Also, Rashad Jennings, not really too sure on. They have come out and said that they think he's going to be the guy. They tried to do that like 12 running back monster last year. Like, I don't even know what they were doing. A lot of people have said, oh, they might go to like 3 or 4 running backs this year and just rotate. They've come out and said they kind of want Rashad Jennings to be the guy. So at this point in the draft, that's pretty solid value. If he has a chance to be the guy, then why not take him? Last point on this list is Theo Riddick. I said I liked. He had 80 catches last year. I mean, he's going to be the third down guy. So why not take him? I mean, you can get him probably in the 9th or 10th round. As a lot of people, that'd probably be like your RB4. For me, it'd probably be your RB3. I'm fine with him as an RB3. If his floor every week, again, is 6 or 7 points, that's fine. That's enough points for me. He's not going to be in the run game, but in the pass game, he's great. This is almost the rest of the list. I don't like Stewart because he's not involved in the pass game. Everything worked for him last year. He's injury prone. He still didn't even get 1,000 yards with everything going in his favor. Ajayi you probably want to grab if you have Foster, just because he's probably the number 2. But they've also said Ajayi can't catch, basically, is what the reports are if he can't. So if he can't catch, he can't get in on 3rd down. Foster's better than him on that. I think they want Foster to be the guy. So I'm all in on Foster. Don't really like Ajayi. This next list, though, this like whatever color that is that like a light pinkish orange? I don't know what that color is. But Thompson, Washington, Drone, Booker, not as much Dixon anymore. Apparently Terrence West, I'm going to move him above actually. Terrence West apparently is emerging as the guy they think could take over Forsett. So we thought it was going to be Dixon, but apparently it's not. But Chris Thompson, I already said, Matt Jones is terrible. So grab Chris Thompson as the 3rd down guy. DeAndre Washington, again, I already talked about Latavius not being that great in my eyes with a fantastic offensive line. If Latavius goes down or just gets replaced because they don't really like him that much, then DeAndre Washington will be the guy. And Sean Drone, the running back coach of the Lions, so Theo Riddick's running back coach, is now the offensive coordinator, I believe, for 49ers. I don't know if it's OC or maybe he's the running back coach, but it's something like that. And he wants Sean Drone to be the Theo Riddick of that team. So if in the 13th round you can grab a guy who's going to play the Theo Riddick role on the 49ers, a team that is going to be down a lot, who already last year caught a ton of passes late, that's fantastic value. So target Sean Drone in PPR leagues. Also Booker. Booker is the most talented running back on the Broncos. CJ Anderson is not more talented than Booker is. It's just, are they going to give him a chance? We'll have to see how they both produce in the preseason. But he's probably going to push. He's going to definitely push out Ronnie Hillman for the backup to CJ Anderson. He'll probably start the year as the backup. But I bet you they're going to feed him the ball more and more. And this is a guy that maybe late in the year, maybe come towards the playoff time, he could take over for the number 1 spot if they like him a little bit more than Anderson. But the rest of these guys they're just terrible. I called it the garbage tier. If you actually download the Excel rankings, I named each tier. It literally doesn't matter, but also you can see my notes next to them, and you can move them yourself. You know, if you like a guy more or less, you can just like highlight it, shift, and then drag it up, and just change the rankings how you want them. But there's no one on this list I really want besides maybe Derrick Henry if I have DeMarco, just because they did spend a high-ish pick on him. So maybe they want him to be the guy, but I personally feel like they want DeMarco to be the guy this year and then ease Henry in so that next year Henry can be the guy. So if you're in a dynasty league, Henry's probably better. But there also are reports that he can catch pretty good, which they weren't expecting. So If DeMarco stinks, which I don't think will happen, but if he does, Henry's going to be a great value pick late in the draft. But there's no one else in this list you want. Maybe Carlos Williams as a handcuff to McCoy, but you could probably just add him in like week 3 because he is suspended for the first 4 weeks. And that's it. I wouldn't draft anyone else on this list, especially in PPR. Definitely not Forsett. Definitely not Crowell. Definitely not Ridley. Where maybe if you want to take a shot on a handcuff to Charles, but I don't like handcuffing players. But that's the end of the video. If you watched this far, leave a like. If you're new, hit that subscribe button. If you want to download the rankings, just go into the description. You can download the Excel file for yourself onto your computer and change it up however you want. Print it out, bring it to your draft, and that's the end. Thanks for watching.